way before your time. Do you guys ever remember a commercial? I'm not only the hair club president, but I'm also a
Yes.
client.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all the
Okay.
jokes that went along with it. And all the
Hello.
jokes that went along with it.
Hello.
Good.
So
I need
Yeah,
more.
you
Freaking work. You got awesome hair.
Yeah, Chris does have awesome.
thanks to the hair club for men.
Yeah. No,
Been
buddy,
a client since I was 24. I dealt with it way before, and I turned it into a business and sold them in 5 for a variety of reasons. But anyhow, so that is the, that's my claim to fame. I'm not
Awesome.
only, yeah.
Yeah,
Hair
More
that was
club
like
history about Chris.
So what did you sell?
You what?
What did you sell? I'm not.
Where have you been? Where have you
Listen,
been, Chris?
we're gonna have to talk offline when I see you, and I'll give you all the details.
But isn't it really great, because we can be comfortable in our identity, and that looks different for everyone else. Some people, it's just owning whatever place you're at. If I don't have hair, I'm just going to own that. That's my identity. It's who I am. And for others, it's, I'm going to own that I have the capability of doing something about it.
Yeah.
Correct.
It gets a bad rap, and it's not fair. Woke culture is getting pummeled, and rightfully so. There's some really, really serious garbage in that, right? Wrapped up in it. But let's be honest. There's a lot of good. People being able to be comfortable with who they are, that's a good thing. That's a message close enough to Yahweh's heart that it gets blurry. And sometimes we have a hard time figuring out, where the line is, or if there even needs to be one.
Right.
And so people being comfortable with who they are and coming out of that's sonship.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Be
But
weird.
it's interesting because that's in a sense, that's a rejection response, a negative response to shame.
Yes.
Like, I'm tired of being shamed for who I am.
Yep.
And a culture that's putting shame on me. And that pokes at the fact that culture, or those who have the responsibility of caring for and loving people, failed in their job. They sidelined them. They divided and were divisive, and they were rigid with their belief systems, and so they rejected people outright for, that's the issue with racism, right? The color of the skin. When you take that and apply it to all different styles and personalities, and so you have people that have said, forget you, I reject your shame, I'm going to be flamboyant in who I am. And I don't mean it in narrow bandwidth. I mean in the idea of the word, I am going to be outspoken, boisterous in who I am, and I'm going to be okay with it because I'm tired of being shamed.
Yep.
And that's really a spirit of liberty that someone's grabbing hold of, in however dysfunctional it might be. That's the heart and the core of the person. And as people above the sun, we need to recognize that in people who are struggling to come out of shame and come into their identity, and not continue in that, embrace them and call forth, the liberty that Yahweh's awakening them, and help shape and direct it to a place of health in their life, both the physical and the spiritual. And so that's interesting though, because that's really, the woke culture is all about rejecting the shame of their past.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it causes them to swing the pendulum the other way.
Yeah.
And they become the producers of the thing that they were subjected to.
Correct. You have to not just accept my differences, you have to like them.
And if you don't, I'm going to shame you.
So what could somebody that's feeling in that's stuck in that rut, what are the 1, 2, or 3 things they should be thinking about to help over time get them back on a path, which is
Well, I think they
Well, the
still
first
have to
step's on me.
recognize that they are still carrying shame. They can
Yeah.
they deny their shame by being more boisterous. And
Yeah.
I'm not been out of shape. I'm just who I am, you know. But in the core, they never dealt with the shame.
Yeah.
And so they're acting out of their shame in a violent manner because they for a long time been timid and submissive to it. And the only thing now is just to rail against it. But the shame is still there, you know. So I would say the first thing is recognize the shame in your own that you're still holding on to and get healed.
And the hard part is on me because the first step is I gotta love them.
Yes.
Like, that's the
Yeah.
hard part. When they're
Say.
overreacting and they're not just saying accept me, but you're dangerous if you don't like me, if you don't agree with me, you know, and or I hate you back. That or just strong arming opinions. Recognize I'm guilty of it too, and just in my way. It just maybe it's subtle or more socially acceptable or behind closed doors in reality. But loving them,
Right.
even though they're because we right now there's a lot of hate. I hate woke culture. No, we don't want to go back to sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want to go back. But with woke culture, it's going to be rough. Everything comes out, and you gotta stick to your guns. Okay. I said you were free. I'm not going to judge you. That means I can't judge you, even if you're judging me because I don't like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe there's the beginning there is, you know, keep my dislikes to myself. They're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
Me, if I said I don't like mohawks, are you going to change your hair, Paul? No. So it's like, what? I spend a lot of time voicing my dislikes. What is that doing?
Right.
Feeling your triggers.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Deanna added something in text really good. She said years ago there was a photo that went around social media of a tribe that had encircled one of their own. He had done something bad and they surrounded him and called out everything good that he really was created to be, calling him into his identity because they looked at the bad act as something that happened because he forgot who he was. I thought it was amazing. I want to be everything the way it is, or I want to be everything the way it was created to be. And that's really,
See everything.
yes. I mean, that it is a huge thing is coming around and calling forth. So you get surrounded by people that will call you. And that's what Above the Suns is, right? We're to be surrounding each other and reminding each other of who we're supposed to be, and in screaming and shouting the beauty of that person, making it louder than the negative aspects. Those bad things start to get drowned out and they start to diminish and disappear. I think that's the act of love, really, what you're talking about, Eric, is we recognize who you are, who you're designed, and we're gonna speak to that. We're not gonna give our breath to the negative stuff. Matter of fact, this is out of your nature. You know,
Yeah.
this is what your nature is. This thing is just an outlier of your nature. So let's call forth your nature, and those things will be removed in time. You know.
Yeah.
But
Isn't that what we do every week almost on our calls? You know, sometimes we have junk that we're dealing with, one of us or the other, and we surround that person, we come together, remind them of who they are so that we can lift them back up and get them into the place that they are meant to be in the right frequency. You know, that is kingdom living, you know, and that's what we're meant to do. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
That's what this community focuses on, and not only with us, but also, you know, with those that are coming in, you know, and journeying with us. That's what we do.
Absolutely.
And it affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a center point. And like Boston likes to point out, that's a lot easier in the big stuff. You know, the big ideas, the big infractions, the big life changes and differences. It's harder in the small.
Mm-hmm.
Little tiny infractions, too tight in traffic, or that annoying sound, or do you always chew with your mouth open, or I got lied to over something small. All these little things, you're in my way. It's all elbows and skin knees, and that's the hard part.
the living life with
Isn't
people.
isn't it, isn't that the quantum? Wouldn't that be part of the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
where you're getting down to the minimum value, of any interaction
Right.
and the daily entanglements and assignments we have through relationships, from the repairman to a child to a husband, a wife, whatever. Those are the crucibles and the opportunities.
Totally.
Yeah, my brain just went somewhere else, but anyhow.
Well, that's how you evaluate. Is something working in my life?
But yeah, so it's the this is where I guess I was thinking Dr. Carolyn Leaf and the thought life, getting down to that level. And if something, and again, what I love, I just keep, and this just helps me. I don't know if it helps anybody else, but it helps me. It's just what overcoming is. You overcome. It's not like, poor me, I'm just hanging on, Lord. I need help. I'm trying to overcome. It's overcoming in the original language is attacking and invading.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the little things that trigger us. I think it was somebody in this call that talked about the fiery darts, and it really can be interpreted as the irritations of life.
Right.
With irritations with ourselves, irritation with other people, how we get triggered. So it's the overcoming of the thought life, at least being aware and awake enough to take responsibility for the way you're thinking. You can stay there, the place that you're at, but if you're not happy about it, then you're going to have to accept responsibility and to repent, which is to simply turn. And of course, we would return back to Dad, state of awe, as Ian, I think, would say, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that he talks about how he evaluates things. If they're good, then he'll see small changes. He'll see daily changes in his life. Like, I call it the granular level, but quanta is such a better word. I want to see it affect me on a granular level, down to the grain of sand, but down to the quanta, down to the individual. And you talk about just being honest with your emotional state. I can't shift gears quickly, and I find that if I do, I don't deal with it, and it comes back. So for right now, the protocol, or at least the process, seems to be sometimes I don't run away from the feelings. I'm just recognizing they're puking on everybody around me, and there's no need for that. And go outside and talk to somebody who can do something about it. Talk to Yeshua straight. Man, what the heck's going on? Let's deal with this.
When the revelation really starts to become a practice, we begin to realize that our interactions or our choices impact our relational connectivity with the other quantum in the quanta. And that what seems to be, because I think we have these internal lists of responses or actions or choices that we make, that we say, you know what, this is just me. I make this choice. It's not going to affect anybody. And we don't really give it word, but we have it in the back of our minds. And there's these lists, no one cares. I do it at home, big deal. It just impacts me. But the reality is that that's not really the case. Never was the case. It was a lie we told ourselves, because it changes who we are in our relational connection. And not only that, me, but then my brother and sister who are having to work with me, they have their part in my shame. They may not be the ones that induced it and influenced the shame, but their part, like we said last week, is how can we come along and help you remove it? How can we help you come above, get yourself out of the mud and move on? And that's that quantum interaction. And the quanta, right, which is the plural form of quantum, the community, it is defined by its interaction, is defined by the interaction of the quantum, right? Yeshua said to disciples, they'll know you're mine, definition, his, by your love for one another. Your interactive love is a sign to the world that you're defined as a quanta as mine. And so we are defined by our interactions with each other. And people will look at above the sun and say, this is above the sun. And this is how I know this is someone that's part of the above the sun, because their interaction lines up to the definition of what the above the sun is, what the quanta is, this community. And so when we begin to realize that our choices even at the individual level and interaction level impact the whole, we'll begin to shift and realize how beautiful the community is.
Yeah, so Justin Abraham's right when he says love wins.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love prevails. That's right. Absolutely.
Every time.
And it doesn't mean we don't judge. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be ineffective. That's
Right.
not an ineffective choice. Patrick Rothfuss has a great quote. He says, 3 things a wise man fears: a sea at storm, a moonless night, and the anger of a quiet man. You don't have to be a loud gong displaying all the negative that you have a problem with and pour it out all the time. Just keep it inside, and when it matters, that righteous anger kicks in and things change.
Yeah.
And
So,
there's that
that's so
creates
good, bro.
an anger with production.
So you're hitting something really good, bro. That look at, there are things that are going to trigger us that we're passionate about, but if we are willing to look at our breath and the words that ride on that breath, and it can produce either positive or negative outcomes. I think one of the things we're charged with ATS is to inspire and motivate, to wake up, but to give people that opportunity that I don't have to remain in the state that I'm in. So one of the things I'm going to work hard on is my breath. I'm going to be cognizant of my breathing, which I am, but the breath as it relates to the words that ride on my breath. And so to your point, hey man, don't necessarily have to express you getting triggered all the time. Just keep your mouth shut, take responsibility for the words that we're going to ride on the breath, internalize it, and then go to dad with those triggers and work it out, and then start there and see what happens. Right?
Yeah.
Am I understanding?
Right.
Dude,
Taking
big time.
responsibility to clean up our junk
Yes.
so that there can be more room for the righteous real.
Yeah.
And we can judge. We can judge. When you put that stuff out there, there's a son on this end going, no, I don't support that. Right? I don't have to go pick it. I don't have to burn something down. I don't have to trigger. I don't have to act like somebody tracked mud in my house, because in relationship with Yeshua, my house is good.
Yeah.
The weather outside may be frightful, but it's not in my house. What Biden does is not in my house, even if I lose rights to my own house. And so judging
I don't
that.
even know what to. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even know what to do. Like, and whether we talk as a group about, politics and stuff. That to me, the big issue, because you guys voted in Idaho, we voted here, and I just didn't even think it. Just did, because I'm thinking, I'll vote in the presidential election, midterm. So there's still apathy going on in me because I just don't trust the system.
I totally missed it.
Does dad want us in the muckety muck? I think there's enough folks that are in that realm that are called to do those things. I don't think above the sun is to trying to turn things around. The voting system is going to be the voting system, whether it's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to all find that balance where we live above the sun, but we come down below the sun and deal with the issues, change the atmosphere, change outcomes. How do we balance that? And,
right. So I think what I hear what you're saying is, we deal with the core issues. We don't deal with the symptoms. We're tired of dealing with the symptoms. We want to deal with the core.
Okay.
We'll mention the symptoms, but what we want is to grow and mature. And the only way to grow and mature is to deal with the core issues. So we get to the roots. And the interesting thing is you get to start seeing a pattern where all these symptoms may be different, but they all have the same core. So it's like, oh yeah, this is it right here. This is the core. Let's talk about that. You bring back the story again of Yeshua talking to, the Jews. They bring the adulterous woman to his feet. And what does he do? He starts asking questions. He starts hitting on the core, right? He's like, you say this, but what about this? Let's really focus on the problem here. And that shut the whole thing down. She was no longer the issue. She was a symptom to a cultural situation. She was probably a symptom of their personal issues. How many of those men actually, serve it, had her over, And so he went to the core issue, and the symptom just ceased to be a symptom. And I think that's the point that I think we get to is like, yeah, this is an issue, but let's go to the matter of this issue. And I think if we deal with that, we won't have to talk about the other because it'll take care of itself. And I think people are wanting to deal with that. We're tired of Band-Aids. And I don't think that's what Above the Sun would do. That's what our Father does with us all the time. We go to him with a symptom issue and he's like, oh yeah, I know. I feel your pain. I understand totally. Let's go into the heart here. Let's see why this is an issue, why this is a symptom. And he takes you down this rabbit hole and you're like, oh my gosh, and then before you know it, you're starting to deal with your junk and those symptoms stop being symptoms. That's what our Father does. And that's what I feel like that's what Above the Sun should do.
So does this mean that it's really true that a nation can be saved in a day?
Yes. I don't even know the mechanics of how that works, but heck yeah, it can.
How do you deal with the thought process, though? I mean, I was just thinking while Jeff was talking, Daniel, and then you had Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. It was actually a process, but then I think the now becomes, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had to deal with their junk. They were dealing with their junk on a daily basis, being challenged in the king's court. They were a step above everybody else and was full on challenged by the wokers of that day. And then, when it was time to really step over the line or cross the line or not cross the line, who is going to bow at the statue, at the principality of the day? They were the only ones that stayed and did not bow. They still had to go through the fire.
Right.
But they, that's where it's at. It's not that you have to go, we still have to go through the crucible, I think, in a lot of ways. We still have to deal with the thoughts, but you saw what happened after that. King Nebuchadnezzar said, hey, you guys come on out. Who was that fourth guy? That changed the nation in a day. There was a switch immediately where it was just like, your God's real, our gods are less. Let's follow your God. Let's follow after what you're doing. And, so I think it can, the quantum was small at that time. There was only 4 of them really, Moses, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, as far as who we know. But then after that, I think things just kind of, we really don't have to bow. I would have loved to have been there the next day, or even that day when all that happened. I mean, that when the king summoned them all forward, after they knew and saw those 4 go in, they saw the rage of the king and the, all his mighty men that were heating up the furnace, that they all died. But yet they walked that line in and out.
Our Father, his yoke is easy and his burden is light. And there's not a different analogy and a different set of rules and laws for every situation that we go through. They're all the same. So the terminology that we've been using and the analogies goes the same as our healing. You know, when we get that symptom, we get that diagnosis, we go, then we have something to work with. We don't worry about the symptoms. We want to worry about we want to be concerned with the diagnosis so that we can go after whatever negative energy and wherever it has been placed that's caused this thing to be, so that we can call that which is not to it back into existence, and that frequency can shift. And just like a nation can be saved in a day, you can be healed in the moment. You can be healed in that day.
Yeah.
There's
But,
practice that we need to do living this out.
right.
You know, I'm not saying we've got it all right and we can do it right now, but we know and we have the steps.
Well, interesting symptoms and core issues. Think about Nineveh and Jonah. The issue with Nineveh was Jonah. It was already a done deal in the Father's heart to redeem Nineveh. Jonah didn't want to go. So you think about it, the core issue was Jonah's heart. It wasn't even about, he didn't even doubt the fact that Nineveh was going to get saved and turn.
He knew it.
He knew it was going to happen. He didn't want to go. So it makes me think about like the US, like how many of the church actually want the US to be saved? The issue is, the symptom is the state of our nation. The issue is the heart of the church. Because if Jonah can turn Nineveh because of going and doing it because Father said, how much can a church change the US if it would go and do it?
When you say America and I struggle with that. Burn baby burn. I admit I felt that way. I know Senator's son, but realizing that has nothing to do with my neighbors, nothing to do with the people here. The people, I love the people, and that's a struggle too, if I'm honest. But no harder than loving my neighbor or even my daughter and wife in a day. It's the same struggle. It boils down to selfishness. And most political conversations end up being indistinguishable from a bad behaving parent in a parking football game in high school. I mean, it's just a lot of people throwing a lot of fits about things they have nothing to do with. And I'm guilty there too. Like it ends up being just a sports team argument. Like you're mad at each other because somebody else did, and you're not doing it, and you're arguing about it isn't changing anything. So what's the point?
Yeah, and that's where Piper talks about, the symptoms. I mean, in a general sense, of what I'm feeling is that humanity, there's a percentage of corruption in all of us, right? So we're working on our junk and our triggers. So think about that there's corruption, and the thoughts of humanity are against God. They're doers of their own thing. I mean, there's a bazillion religions. Our issues are above and beyond what humanity is able to solve. It's a corruption issue. It's really core morals. Where's the plumb line? Absolutes. Is there a God? Is there not a God? I mean, at the end of the day, the bottom line, it's a heavy conversation to have. It has to be had. So we can build relationship with people that might not be believers, but through love, displaying love and expressing love and building that bridge of relationship. And you have the invitation and opportunity to talk about deeper things. We're not even there. So I think an entire country, nation can turn around in a day because of something, an event that shifts the mind, that I see it happening inside of my children. It's happening little by little because they're seeing the hypocrisy of government and it's every day. And think about how we deal with our junk and how we struggle and how we try to stay in shalom every day until the masses. That's why I need to go back and read that book called Propaganda by Edward Bernays in 1928. He was like a brilliant advertising dude, but governments would hire him because he had figured out how to manipulate the masses and how to advertise cigarettes and get women to start smoking. And I mean, it's just amazing. But that's what communism and Marxism has picked up on that. I mean, we talked about brainwashing the other day. Humanity is brainwashed.
Right.
I mean, we've got to have basic conversations about, is there one truth or 12 truths? We have to have a real conversation. you know, and how do you do that in a language that you don't sound like you're from the church? It's just really having a real conversation with people that are on a journey of discovery, that, you know, that want to know if there's something above and beyond this chaos and toxicity on this planet. Humanity is not going to get out of what it's put itself in.
Because Father said to me last week, Carolyn, you can trust me with such and such. And I'm like, and I was riding high on that word. Okay. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm right. I'm riding high on that word. You know, the frequencies are awesome. I'm just, you know, sucking the life out of that word. You can trust me. It's happened that really made me mad. And I'm like, oh, so that high frequency, all of a sudden my frequency takes a nosedive. And I'm like, okay, I so loved living up here in that love, in those higher frequencies. And then when I went down, I'm like, oh no. You know, it's like when Jesus said, Satan has nothing in me. And I'm like, that's like my word. I'm like, I want to, you know, I don't want to have anything in me that's going to cause me to get triggered or whatnot. And if I'm praying for that over there, of course, Father's going to deal with me first in my walk, in my personal walk with Yahweh, in my daily scroll. It's always, it's like, let's deal with the junk stuff here so that when I'm face to face with you, breathing you in, you're breathing me in, and we're in that unity of heart right here, looking at each other, that there anything in me that would stop that union in the beloved, I believe that he's going to take care of. I remember, guys, I remember this about 7 years ago. It was my birthday. And on my birthday, July 17th, he said to me, my gift was, in a dream, I'm making you a solution. So every day, that's my declaration. Carolyn, you are a solution. You know?
Is think about, you know, QRST, and the T is trading. Trading is just not, you know, silver and gold and, you know, sewing into something.
Mhm.
You look what you've been doing as you're dealing with your stuff. You're exchanging value. You're being patient with yourself, going through the process. It's like it reeks of just, it's trading. That's what people need to know. There's an outcome that's going to come
Right.
out of trading in that way. That's really good, Carolyn.
It
Oh,
is.
thank
That's
you.
good.
Make sure that you were aware of the fact you're trading. It's awesome.
Oh,
Awesome.
thanks for helping me see that. I appreciate that, especially
Awesome.
today.
Yep. We're always trading. Always trading with
We're
our
always
Father.
trading.
You're right. We are trading. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yep.
Deanna's put in the comments, and you know, basically a lot of what she's saying is whether we're speaking to our animals or whether we're living life, when we change our wording and speaking into that which is positive and eliminating the
Right.
negative, you know, and what a change
Mhm.
that can be for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Changes everything around us accordingly, you know.
Yep.
It's
Moving from
definitely
the
life
negative,
changing when we do that.
moving from the negative to the affirmative in our language. Absolutely.
Yes.
It does. It, as small as it is, as simple as a change, it's a heavy lift. And I've told people before, you guys probably heard me before say this, that you just take one day and observe what comes out of your mouth. And the bulk of it's going to be in the negative. I can't, I won't, I don't want to. It's, I wish I didn't. All those different things, we are so more oriented towards the negative, we don't even realize it. And so it is a heavy lift to begin to change. And that's what I tell, you know, other people when I talk about this. It's, you have to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive for a season in your life to disentangle from the negative language in your life at the simplest, at the smallest level, with the N''T, and removing that and putting in the affirmative. And as you make that a habit and be aggressively active in changing those simple little words out, you will begin to change and restructure your life, and your attitude about life will shift. It'll come in your emotions, right? Because the emotions are tied. It's interesting because our emotions influence our words, but then when we kick in the wheel, right? Emotions and soul, the wheel gate of our WILL, and make that come ahead of our emotions. And through the wheel, we shift our words, then the emotions come along, and now we're leading our emotions rather than our emotions leading us, right?
Mhm.
And that's part of shifting into from the negative to the affirmative, is we've got to be aggressive to put our will in front of our emotions, to shift those words. Even though it's a crappy day outside and it's raining and you got a flat tire, how are you going to use your words to affirm what you want to walk in?
Right.
That's where the crucibles are. That's where the fire, comes in, is you don't feel it, but I'm going to say it because I'm going to will my emotions to follow me. And sometimes I have to put it on a short lead, but it's going to come along because I desire transformation.
And give yourself the grace as you work that out.
Yeah.
Entanglements. You're going to be aware of some, some you won't. And, you'll quote unquote miss the mark on some entanglements. And what's that? Sin. Isn't that what sin is? Yeah. We need to just get rid of sin and just talk. People, we miss the mark all the time. So are we missing the mark conscious? No. So we have to also give ourselves and love ourselves enough to give ourselves the grace
Absolutely.
to continue to take the crucibles of our lives and the daily relationship, right? Everything's about relationship, and the relationship is all around us. It's been happening here for the last hour, right? So,
Right.
so it's, yeah. And then over time, it's just then we're rewiring our brain, and yeah, that's why I love the fact that our energy, we have a frequency, we vibrate, and the way we think. And Ricky Newhouse said this the other day. He said that our present and our future are happening simultaneously. It's still unknown what the next minutes are going to look like. So it's like, wow. So I have an opportunity, in the now, to over time have my thoughts and just walk this thing out. And as your future it's happening simultaneously, and that's where I think intention and the desires of the heart come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is
Right.
it that we're passionate about, that we're triggered? Okay, Chris, so what are you triggered about? I'm triggered about this, Dad. Well, what do you want to do about it? I think we should do this. Okay, well, why don't you practice and trust me with the process?
That's so good. And Chris, I have to go back to what you say when you say with intent. And that's something that for the past week or two, I've been talking with Abba about. I'm like, will you teach me about with intent? And, like when I breathe in your breath and I see it, your breath coming down into me with intent. What are you bringing into me? I'm in the realm of your love in your heart. So now with intent, I'm seeing that go into my liver, say, or into my body that needs healing. And Chris, I just have to thank you for this, because that whole, and I keep hearing it. I said, but the first time I heard it from you with intent. As a matter of fact, guys, and ladies, last night we watched for the first time Doctor Strange, and I had never seen that before. And as I'm watching it, I'm going, oh my gosh. And do you know that the bald-headed lady, she even talked about with intent. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I was getting revelation watching that movie, And so I'm like, this morning I get up for my early morning time, and then I go out for my walk, and I'm going and I'm walking and I'm going, teach me about intent. So I'm like, and this, Chris, okay, this is so cool, because I'm like, with it, there's such power there. I'm just just grasping it. And there must be something really, really, really important to it because, oh, it's like, okay, so this is creation. I'm just saying, this is creation. So that he's bringing it up to me. I keep hearing the word intent, intent, intent. So I'm like, what is my part? What is on my scroll that you want me to deal with? Okay, in my territory that I have inheritance in, and you've all heard me talk about it, they've got forest fires up there now, not far from where I believe is our inherited place. And so I'm like, Father, what is my place with intent that you are doing through me that you want me to release and be a solution?
There you go.
And so but guys, this is so exciting. And I mean, I've been doing this before, but it's like the intent, the point, the coming together, the relationship with Yahweh, doing what only we see him doing in Yeshua, manifested through us with intent, is like, this is what I see. So your future now becomes your now because you change it because of amen. I could just go on.
So is an intention, first of all, what does intention look like? Is it a physical thing? Oh, so intention is unseen.
Yeah.
Kind of like the quantum.
Feel it, but you feel it.
Kind of like, so intention exists in the quantum.
Kind of like the substance of faith.
Ooh,
Yes.
now we're going.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And who
Keep
said
going.
that I have to see, I don't even need to see a circumstance change to know
Right.
that it's happening, that it's doing, that what I'm doing is positive.
That's tied to trust.
Right.
Yeah.
Then just hook it up, wrap it up in a bow with trust and trust the process.
Yeah.
And he's already got it, man. It's playing out. It's playing out right now. Yeah. But I will say,
Bring your power. Yeah, Diana.
I do get irritated, and I do get some grunt when I see corruption and it's just the layers we're just getting started, and I'm trying to deal with that energy, and I'm trusting Dad with the process, and
right.
yeah, it's just, again, the breath and the words that come out, and so, but you're spot on, bro. That was good.
Yeah.